Hello, Canada and baseball fans in the United States and Newfoundland. And yes, we did steal that line from Hockey Night in Canada. My name is Clayton Croker, and I'm drinking. And welcome to episode 4 of Bat Flips and Maple Dips. Today's episode is titled Grichuk is Daddy. Who's your daddy, Justin? Who's your daddy?
Randal Grichuk is, in fact, my daddy.
To my left, it is Justin, Brett Laurie Fan Club Vice President Anderson. How you doing, buddy?
Founder and CEO of that fan club, actually.
The Cement Head Fan Club. Fantastic. Joining us via Skype, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Patrick, the Maritime Mistress Maker, Marsh. I didn't have time to think of another nickname for you, buddy. Plus, that
good.
One's too good. The Maritime Mistress Maker.
Yeah, I feel like, well, my girlfriend probably won't appreciate it as much as we do. But yeah, I like it. That or like something cool like the Beast from the East. I like that.
That's too
You
generic.
can't come up with your own nickname though.
No, if you give yourself your own nickname, you know what? We don't even want people listening to this podcast if they gave themselves their own nickname. We don't want fans like that.
No.
So if you gave yourself your own nickname, just stop listening right now.
Our SoundCloud numbers are going to drop by half
That's
this week.
fine. That's fine. On today's episode, we're going to recap last week because the Jays, pretty medium when it comes to results. Classic Jays. As always, Patrick has a big rant coming up because he always does. We got a good edition of Sorry Not Sorry again today. Advanced Stats with Professor Anderson over here. Holy nerd fest today. It's going to be awesome. We got the farm report today, too, because I don't know if you've been paying attention, but our farm team's actually pretty good. The New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Oh, boy. We'll go over some trade rumors, and then we'll also talk about shitting our pants. It's literally going to be a little bit of everything today. Let's start out here with last week's Jays. They got the split against the Braves. Didn't do too good in Anaheim, but in Houston the other day, looking good. Justin, we'll start with you. What did you see from the Jays this week? Some positives, some negatives?
Yeah, I just want to point out that I believe it was last week's episode that I predicted a split in both of the series against the Braves and the Angels. So it wasn't looking too good after the first couple of games of that Angels series, but the boys turned it around. The thing that we had touched on was that they needed good starting pitching, and for the most part, I mean, we did get that, minus the 11-4 game and the 8-5 game in LA. We had some good starting pitching. I mean, Stroman was really good on a Saturday in his return. I think he went 5 in the third, or just 5 innings even, but he struck out 5 and only walked 1 batter, so he looked pretty good in his return. And I mean, the bats have been kind of inconsistent. I mean, we had a couple of games where we've scored 5 runs, and that's kind of our magic number for winning. So if they can continue to score some runs like that and hit the long ball, that's what we're living and dying by the home run right now, which is, like you always say, classic Jays.
Yeah.
We're not playing much small ball, but that's to be expected when you have guys like Hernandez who just swings for the fences every time up. But I love that about him. It's
Patrick,
great.
what did you see negative about the Jays? Did you see anything that concerned you over the past week?
Nothing that we're not used to at this point. I know that sucks to say, but we're just kind of hardened by this miserable season. I kind of more want to talk about like the positive stuff. Obviously, Randal Grichuk is the man, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But it's nice to see Kendrys Morales doing work, Happ doing work, Ryan Tepera doing work, and even like Teoscar Hernandez is out there crushing the ball too. It's nice to see that bats are starting to like come around, and props to Justin, he called it. We got 2 splits, and then we picked up the win in Houston last night, which is a huge deal because they're basically the best team in the American League. So I don't want to think too much about the negatives about this team anymore because there's just so many of them. I just kind of want to see the silver lining, which is some of our guys that we have, who are going to be on the team next year are performing adequate to well.
Let's talk about that Houston game because, again, big 6-3 win from the boys. Everyone's talking about Randal Grichuk's catch. When I first watched it, the score had the caption under it, catch of the year, ? And after seeing it twice, I was like, no way, just your classic, reaching up at the fence and robbing a home run. But then I watched it a couple more times. That is a filthy catch because he got up there. Like most at the fence catches, it's just barely heading over. That was gone by a little bit, and he got up there and just took it away. I like the attitude that he had when he was taking it away from the fans. Like, no. We've been talking about Randal a lot on the show. I'm just going to go through last 30 games here. 7 home runs, 19 RBIs. The big stat for me, 7 walks. Because early in the season, this guy was striking out a ton. He had no vision at the plate. 7 walks. I mean, it's not great, but it's getting better. His average is at 247 over those last 30 games. I mean, his first 7 games, we don't even want to talk about it, really. But has Randal Grichuk shown enough for you to maybe say, hey, don't trade this guy, don't give up on him. Maybe he could be a part of our future. Patrick, you go up.
Yep, definitely. The last 30 games are enough for me to say this is the real Randal Grichuk. I don't think that this is his ceiling, but dude's got pop in his bat, and he's starting to draw walks. He's doing exactly the fundamental things that we have previously been, complaining about the Jays players not doing at the plate. If he can keep it up, if he kind of had a season that was based off of his last 30 games stretched out, that's exactly the kind of corner outfielder we want to have on this team in the future. And it looks to me like if Grichuk can stabilize, get that batting average up a little bit more, because it's kind of been up and down in the last 30 games. If he can stabilize that, I really like him as a corner outfielder.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned his ceiling this isn't it, but I think we've definitely seen his floor of how far down he was in April.
Yeah.
He's a guy that one day he'll look real good, and the next day it looks like he's kind of lost out there. But there's been more good days than bad recently. And like you said, I think the corner outfielder thing is huge. Like you need your corner outfielders to produce offensively, and he's done that. I mean, the 7 home runs are proof enough alone that he's at least hitting the ball. His slugging percentage is up, and just producing. We need somebody behind Smoke, and I guess Morales now, and Solarte in there too. That's providing us with some pop this year. Having those 4 guys who are legitimate home run threats every time they come up, that's big for the middle of the order.
It's the secondary hitting that is going to be big for the Jays. Not this year because, again, we're basically done this year, but for next year, because when the Jays were making the playoffs a few years ago and we were mashing the baseball, it was, the big guys, Josh Donaldson, Edwin, Jose, but it was those secondary guys, and that's what the Jays have been missing this year, and Grichuk is one of those secondary guys that has been playing really, really well. Let's look to the week ahead, shall we? Because we got to close out this series against Houston. We got 2 more games left. Then we got a 4-game series against Detroit. We play the Mets and Joey Bats after that. I'm just going to go first here. I don't think we're going to beat Houston these next 2 games. I think we blew our wad the first game, and we're not going to win these next 2 games. I'm calling that we sweep Detroit. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the Jays get a little hot before the All-Star break and sweep Detroit, and then maybe make some noise against the Mets, who are the most unpredictable team in baseball. But I just think that, I don't know, the Jays are looking good. You get a good confidence boost after beating a team like Houston, even if you do lose the next couple games. But what do you guys think this week ahead? Are we going to see any big moves from the Jays? Maybe some trades, maybe some call-ups, or Justin, bud?
Well, we're calling up Ryan Baracki to start tonight. Interesting choice. I actually wrote a piece for a website saying that I wanted Sean Reed-Foley to be the guy that would come up.
Give yourself a shameless plug. What website was that?
Shameless plug. 6-man rotation. Patrick and I both right there.
There you go.
That's kind of how this whole podcast came to be, in a sense. But in terms of Baracki, I mean, he's a ground ball pitcher, which we do like. He's not going to strike out a ton of guys. His Ks per 9 is under 7. Walks are around 3 this year in AAA. He started 13 games. He's 6-5. His ERA is 3.27. His FIP is a little bit higher, over 4. Whereas Reed-Foley started in New Hampshire this season before getting called up to Buffalo. And his ERA in Buffalo is a little bit higher, but his FIP is actually lower than Baracki. So all things considered, if they had the same outcome on their balls in play, yada, 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 Reed-Foley's actually been the better pitcher this year. So I was hoping that Sean would get the call for this game. And he's a right-handed batter, and right-handed pitcher, and Houston tends to mash lefties a bit. So I'm a little bit nervous about that tonight with Berkey being called up, but we will see how that goes.
All right, Patrick, what are your predictions here, and what do you think about the Jose Bautista? Is that game in Detroit, or is it in New York?
In Toronto, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in Detroit, I'm recognizing. Is it in Toronto or is it in New York?
It's in Toronto,
So the return of Joey Bats, how do you think that's going to go, and how do you think the rest of the week's going to go, too?
Okay, well, starting with Houston, I agree with you, Clayton. I think we are probably toast for the next 2 games. Houston is just too good. There's no chance that, they're going to let the Jays walk away with a series win or even a sweep. So, I made peace with that. We got the big win. I'm happy about that. As far as Detroit goes, it would be great if we swept them. But at the same time, that means we start flirting with 500, and then, the zeitgeist on social media is going to start saying, oh, well, they're at close to 500. Maybe the season's not over. And I want everyone to just sort of take this season as a loss, a sunk cost, and just enjoy watching individual players play and say goodbye to the ones that we are eventually going to deal out. I'm going to say, bold prediction, after the New York Mets series, we're going to be 1 game under 500.
Interesting.
Very, very bold strategy, but that's what I'm saying is probably going to happen. As for the call-up, I think it's great that Ryan Borucki's coming up. I do agree with Justin and the piece that he wrote for SMR earlier this week, saying that it should have been Sean Reed-Foley, if only because is he rocking the porn stash still?
He's got
He
the
really is.
beautiful porn stash right now.
Ned Flanders-esque.
Yes.
He's 22 years old and he can already rock a better mustache than me. So I say call him up, give him the ball, see what happens.
Yeah. What's the worst that happens? He gets rocked around and you send him back, but he's going to get sent back anyway. So, I mean, he's risen from AA already this year. You might as well give him a shot and see where his development really is. Because before this year, Sean Reed-Foley hadn't done a ton to show that he was ready for the next level. And neither has Ryan Borucki. So, I mean, in a sense, they're giving a guy a call. Like, Borucki went from high A all the way to AAA last season. So he rose pretty quickly last year. Pitched well enough to do so. So, I mean, it's a case of evaluating somebody, a lefty, which is very valuable. We've touched on that before. So, I mean, let's give him a shot. I'm all for it. Would have preferred Reed-Foley, but, I mean, Borucki looks like he's going to be an okay guy, too.
Shout out, though, to Jose Bautista, who everybody said was done, including me.
Yeah.
I thought the dude was done. You know what his on-base percentage is in New York right now?
Go on.
Because, let's face it, Atlanta was the equivalent of his spring training.
Yeah.
His on-base percentage with the Mets is .460.
That's not bad.
That's all right.
Dude draws walks. I wish we had somebody on the team who could draw walks as good as Jose Bautista does. He has one of the best eyes at the plate. And, I mean, yeah, he's done, and whatever is happening in New York is special, and it'll be great to see him in town. But, man, does he have something left, or is this just sort of like, I don't know,
Jose Bautista,
some sort of like last-second magic?
He's gonna draw walks. That's what he does. He's one of the on-base kings. I mean, he's Russell Martin right now, but with power. Like, Russell Martin's still drawing walks, but he can't hit the damn ball. Whereas Bautista's still got 4 dingers in what has he played so far this season? 43 games. So, I mean, he's not mashing the ball like he used to, but he can still connect. I mean, we've seen a couple home runs on the highlight films, and the stat I talked about last week, WRC plus. League average is 100. He's at 131 right now. So he's over a positive player in limited time with the Mets. He's not starting there, but he's getting a decent amount of playing time. So he's contributing, and that's all the Mets were looking for when they signed him. So
I think this is his Frank Thomas with Oakland season.
Yeah.
He's going to prove it a little bit, and a team's going to give him a big 2-year contract, and then next year he's going to do nothing. Let's get ranting, shall we? Patrick, today's rants. Spoiler alert, it's going to be a pretty debatable topic here, but a pretty important one. So, Patrick, rant away, good sir.
Okay, so before I get started, just an introduction to the format. The way that this one works is that I'm going to deal with hypotheticals or serious topics that are floating around MLB, specifically around the Jays. Last week it was a what if. This week the topic is a pretty heavy one, and it's all about Roberto Osuna. So strap yourselves in. I've got a little bit to say on the matter, and then we can kind of talk about it after the fact. But I think everyone can, generally speaking, appreciate the message that I have at the end of this. So without further ado, here we go. After weeks of waiting, Toronto Blue Jays fans finally got some news regarding Roberto Osuna. On June 22nd, it was announced that Osuna had been suspended 75 games by MLB retroactive to May 8th in accordance with the Joint Domestic Violence, Sexual Assault, and Child Abuse Policy. This would be an unpaid suspension, although Osuna had been on paid administrative leave since his arrest. Meanwhile, Osuna would return to court on July 9th while facing the assault charge. He intends to plead not guilty. Blue Jays manager John Gibbons spoke to the media saying a little more than the following. This is all via ESPN. These are quotes that they had on their website. I don't have much of a reaction other than you take what MLB does and trust that and live with that and let it go through its course. We knew something was coming down. Actually, it took a while. Hopefully, it all gets worked out on both sides and everyone gets the help they need and everything works out fine. When Gibby was asked about whether it was better enough for the Jays to now know the length of the penalty, Gibby just said, I guess that helps. We've kind of moved past that anyway and may do with what we've had. So take that for what you will. The question moving forward is, what happens when Roberto Osuna's suspension is over? It is clear that the trade deadline is going to pass well before the suspension is done, meaning that Osuna will likely remain affiliated with the team at least past the deadline. There's no real timetable for his return to baseball, as well as a verdict in the courtroom. The revelations of this case are undoubtedly going to have an impact on Osuna's career trajectory, which is disappointing. It is unfortunate that a young ball player who was once assumed to be a superstar on the Blue Jays may not have a future with the team or potentially in baseball. More importantly, it's time for us to have a talk about shedding the notion that celebrities and athletes are idols that we should strive to emulate. Like us regular people, pop culture idols are capable of making mistakes. It's clear that Roberto Osuna has made some in the past. This isn't the first time that his name has come up associated with criminal activity, and we can talk about the rest of that after the fact once I'm done the rant here. But as a society, we need to acknowledge that athletes like Osuna are capable of doing horrible things, some of which cannot be forgiven. I won't pretend to know Osuna personally, nor can I put myself in the shoes of someone else responsible for what he allegedly did. I also can't claim I know whether he did it or whether he didn't do it. It's disappointing that there are people on social media prepared to condemn or protect him before he's had his day in court. If you want to know more about MLB's policy and how it might affect Osuna, Fangraphs actually has a great piece up right now all about the Osuna case from a baseball perspective and the shortcomings of the current joint domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse policy. For my part, I think it goes without saying that domestic violence is wrong, and it is important that we as a society do what we can to support victims of domestic abuse. Here in Canada, we have the Victim Services Directory, or the VSD. It was created by the Policy Centre for Victim Issues of the Department of Justice Canada to help service providers, victims, and individuals locate services for victims of crime across Canada. If you need help, please reach out through this directory, which you can find through a quick Google search. All you need is your postal code, and the directory will help you find the resources you need to get help. You can also find numerous websites through endingviolencecanada.org for each province. To victims of domestic violence, please know that you're not alone and that there are people out there ready and able to help you find a better life that is violence-free. So I do apologize that this is a heavy topic, and normally we wouldn't be dealing with something as heavy-handed as domestic violence on this podcast, but I think it goes without saying that Roberto Osuna was a very popular player in Toronto, and he may still be, depending on the verdict of the case. But what do you guys have to say about this topic?
Well, I'm just super bummed out now, so...
Sorry.
I don't know. I'd say just Roberto's got to sit out the rest of the year, even if he's eligible to play the end of the year. Just sit it out. No matter what the verdict is, just sit out this year, work everything out in the offseason, see how it kind of turns out. But I just think Roberto's done. I don't know. Again, I don't know him personally. I don't know the story. I don't know if he was right. I don't know if he was wrong. But I got this hunch where he's been super, super quiet about it. He hasn't been super animate that it wasn't him and stuff like that. It's just, it just doesn't look good for him. I don't know why. I got that gut feeling that he just, I don't know. It's a tough topic to talk about. I'm a very silly guy, as you guys can tell. So when it comes to serious topics like this, it's not my forte. It's not my wheelhouse, if you will. So I just think that, you know what, Roberto Osuna, I just think that he should be done as a J. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen cases in the MLB recently with Aldis Chapman and also Jose Reyes in domestic violence cases. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think Chapman strangled or choked his girlfriend and shot some bullets into their garage wall. So I mean, that I can't speak to the extent of Roberto's current predicament, but I mean, that's pretty serious, firing a gun in the vicinity and that kind of thing. Yeah. And he's still pitching in the big leagues, and his suspension wasn't as long, and neither was Jose Reyes's. So I think the MLB is kind of trying to set a precedent now. It seems like every time one of these suspensions is handed out, it gets longer, which is a good thing. I mean, we talk about steroid suspensions all the time, but this is this has a bigger effect on people's well-being and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I take it a little bit more seriously. I mean, steroids are what they are. People are going to use them. They're out there. But domestic violence is definitely something that's should be avoidable and prevented more so. So, I mean, I'm kind of with Clayton on this. The rest of the season is probably what we'll see happen with Osuna. I mean, even if his case is resolved by the time the suspension is over, you might see the Jays just put him on a team suspension through the end of the season, just to avoid the negative publicity, or maybe positive if he's found not guilty. Who knows? Any sort of story that could come out of this, they might just try and avoid that sort of spotlight and deal with it in the offseason when the prying eyes of the media aren't so squarely focused on the team.
Yeah, there's one other thing too that we have to consider with regards to baseball in this case, because we can't really say very much about the court case until it's happened and there's been a verdict. But if he is found guilty and then sentenced, there is a possibility that he might not even be able to get a visa so that he can work in the United States, which obviously would have a dramatic impact on his employment with any MLB team, let alone Toronto. So there are so many different layers to this story, and I just think it's really important that MLB sets a good precedent when it comes to domestic violence. And it's sort of frustrating that this this new policy that they have, or newer policy that they have, the one that I mentioned before, the joint domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse policy, I think it's relatively new. And the fact that the suspensions continue to get more severe, it makes me wonder, looking back, was the Chapman suspension a mistake? Like, should it have been longer or more severe? Or what about the Jose Reyes situation? If it just keeps getting worse and worse, and then we start comparing them to each other, I feel like a lot of the real message is going to get lost in the shuffle. Yeah. And that's the last thing I'm going to say this week about Osuna and this whole issue, because there's nothing we can do about it at this point. It sucks. It's really unfortunate that a career might potentially get cut short. But even more important and worse than that is that there's somebody out there who had to experience domestic violence like that and may not have all the proper avenues to turn to as far as getting out and getting help. So it was kind of nice to see Gibby just kind of pass something off, saying, like, we hope that everything works out and everything is worked out on both sides. I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to get at there. If you guys have any insight on what Gibby had to say, or maybe it was just sort of him towing the line that he needed to tow.
I think that's the case. I don't think Gibby probably has anything meaningful to contribute, so he's probably just keeping his mouth shut. I mean, it's out of our hands now. It's in the court's hands, so he's got to let them resolve it when the time comes.
Can we talk about baseball again?
Yeah,
like, is
let's
that?
talk about
Can we
Yes.
just move on? Like,
Yeah.
this is like the saddest 15 minutes in podcast history here. I know it's an important topic, but
Yeah.
again, the sad stories and important debate issues. Again, this is a very, very important debate. It's not for me. I like to be silly. I like to joke around. That's why we're doing this next one up here. Sorry, not sorry. We have to apologize to some players, and then we have to do the opposite of apologize to players. We have to roast them. Who do we have to apologize today first? There, Justin?
Well, we're not really apologizing to Kendrys Morales. I mean, we talked about him last time that he was playing much, much better. And he's continuing to do that. I mean, he's kind of raking right now, so to speak. So I mean, Kendrys, he bugs me sometimes because the guy just looks like, what's he doing? Like, he swings at a lot of weird pitches. Like, he struck it a couple times last night on just waving at the ball, runners in scoring position. And then he'll come up the next night and be clutch as all hell and hit that home run the top of the ninth against the Angels to help us win the game. So I mean, he's doing things, and I mean. I say it to my sister all the time, like, Kendrys did a thing, and he's doing things right now. So I mean, as long as he keeps to produce some runs for us, I'm not apologizing, but I'm not gonna roast the guy.
You seem
anymore.
very timid about it, though. You're
Yeah.
not saying it with conviction. You're just kind of like, oh, okay,
It's not. I don't feel as strongly about apologizing to Kendrys Morales as I did about Devin Travis last week. So
I'd say you would, because Kendrys has been killing it. I know he's been a little bit inconsistent,
Yeah.
but Suns Out Guns Out Kendrys has been fantastic. This is the player that we thought we were going to get last year to replace Edwin, and yes, he has been very, very, very inconsistent, 3 varies, but he has been clutch a few times, and compared to the other players that we picked up since our playoff days, he hasn't been doing terrible. He's definitely been picking it up, and yes, we got to apologize to him. Next up for Patrick, Randal Grichuk, Daddy. I'll let you apologize to him, bud.
Dear Randal Grichuk, I'm writing to you today to let you know that I'm sorry and I love you. And thank you for taking the time to fix your swing and hopefully get your batting average above 200 to make you a more serviceable corner outfielder, and keep drawing walks, keep hitting dongs, and hopefully next year you're off to a better start. But I am sorry. That's it.
That was really creepy at the start. I'm glad it turned around at the
So-
end there, because I thought you were going to like I love your body, I love your smell, or something like that. But all right, I'm glad that went that way.
He's hitting 279 this
Exactly.
month. So,
I don't
there you
have to
go.
apologize to this next guy. I think this is you two, but I'll apologize to the guy after this. Jay Happ. I don't need to apologize to Jay Happ. I've been pumping his tires since we started this podcast. I think he's great. But if you guys want to apologize for something you guys did.
No, I mean, I'm not sorry to Jay Happ because I haven't said anything about him either. The point of him being in this section is that we don't have to be sorry to Jay Happ because he's awesome.
Why isn't he in the next part then?
The next part says who was bad. Clayton.
Oh, gotcha. You're right. You're right.
So we're definitely not sorry to this badass of a man. I mean,
I'm sorry.
Be. I mean, he held the Astros to 3 runs last night over 6 innings, and that's respectable against the best team in baseball. Patrick, you have to apologize to Jay.
Yes, I'm sorry, Jay Happ. You're probably going to get traded before the deadline, which means we're going to have to sign you for a 3rd time. Please don't be mad, because you're the most valuable player on our team.
And probably our only All-Star.
Exactly.
If the time comes where he's still on the team by then.
So it's more of a sorry, we're probably going to have to trade you again.
Yeah.
This last guy, I definitely have to apologize to him. Ryan Tepera. I'm sorry, Ryan Tepera. I really called you I called you a vanilla baseball player. I called him the generic baseball player you make on MVP Baseball, where you're too bored to set up all the settings. You just, create the guy and don't do anything. That's what I called Ryan Tepera. He's a very middle-of-the-road baseball player. He hasn't been over the past couple weeks. The Jays bullpen, in general, has been an absolute dumpster fire, but Ryan Tepera has been very, very solid. We've been very, very critical of Ryan Tepera, but I think me more than you guys. So, Ryan Tepera, I know you're listening right now. I'm very, very sorry, good sir.
Yeah, that's all we have to say about Ryan. He's going to get traded too, but there is that.
Yeah.
I don't think we're sorry about that as much as we are about how we've talked about this before. Man.
Exactly. Okay, who are we not sorry to? First up, Patrick, I'll let you have this one.
Good old
Jaime Garcia.
Ugh.
Listen, I knew so little about him before we signed him, and then I was so hopeful after those first couple of starts, and now I'm not glad he's injured. Okay, I'm not glad he's injured. But if he happens to take a little bit of time off, so we're not starting him, that's okay with me.
Because he's like,
And that's
he was known for keeping the ball down in the zone. Like, that was his big thing before he came to the Jays. Oh, he keeps the ball down. He keeps the ball down. He's not keeping the ball down. So if you're not doing the one thing that you promised beforehand, I mean, like, he can't really expect too much out of him, and you got to give him a little bit of pressure too.
Yep.
he's starting to make Joe Biagini look good, and that's a problem.
It's never good. He's making Josh Towers look good.
We're not that far yet.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close. Like, at least Francisco Liriano last year could actually, like, handle himself on the mound. He had a couple bad starts here or there, but Jaime's he's consistently bad. There's never that one really good start. That's not good. The bullpen. Justin, you take it away.
Yeah, these guys. In May, the bullpen was kind of the talk of the team. They were keeping us in games when our starting pitchers were brutal, and we flip-flopped this month. This month has been the month of the starting pitcher, and the bullpen has decided that, hey, it's our turn to take a break. And spoiler alert, bullpens, you can't take a break because you're coming into high-leverage situations when the game is either on the line, hopefully, or completely out of reach when you're trying to be like, hey, get us some innings here. And they haven't been able to do either of those things. We've been giving up leads, giving up a lot of home runs. And I mean, outside of Tepera, and I mean, O got saved by Grichuk last night in that ninth inning, or else he would have a very bad ERA as well because he would have given up 3 there. So I mean, they're getting some help from their friends, which is what you have to do. But when you're putting balls in play and they're going over the fence, you can't expect Randal Grichuk to climb the fence every time you put him back. So I mean, good on you, Ryan Tepera, for holding the bullpen together. But the rest of you guys need to pick your stuff up.
All right, let's get to Kevin Pillar here. I'm going to let you guys chirp him because I never
talk about this one.
Yeah, I never have. Oh, we'll let Patrick go first, and then you can. Okay, sharing is caring. Okay, bud. Can't just hog the podcast the whole time.
Things to say.
I don't want to chirp Kevin Pillar at all because I mean I know you guys are all about the stats. You look at all the stats and see that's how a baseball player is doing. Oh, he's not hitting well, he's not fielding well, so that means he's not playing well. With Kevin Pillar, Kevin will always make those huge diving catches in the most critical of situations to get the momentum on their side. You don't have any fancy stats for momentum, good sir. Momentum you cannot keep track of, and Kevin Pillar is king of the momentum. So yes, he may be an average guy at the plate. I mean, he's still not bad.
He's not average at the plate.
And he's not having the best defending season like he's used to. Yeah. But again, he'll always make those huge diving catches, sacrificing his body for the boys. So that's why I can't say anything bad about Kevin Pillar.
My issue with Kevin Pillar on defense is that he's just not very fast, so he's making a lot of diving catches that he shouldn't have to be making, but the reason he's making it is because he can't get to the ball in time. They did a couple things on StatCast a little while ago where they kind of superimposed Kevin Pillar and Kevin Kiermaier of the Rays onto the kind of the same type of plays, and Kiermaier is light speed compared to Pillar. And I'll talk a bit about his defense here. I mean, there's a stat called Ultimate Zone Rating, UZR, that kind of factors in things like range, arm strength, and route running and all that fancy stuff. And Kevin Pillar had a great 2016, but since then, he's now this year rated as a negative defender in terms of UZR, so he's actually hindering the team on defense. As a center fielder, that's not great. I still believe, we've touched on it before when we talked about kind of our batting prospects like Anthony Alford, that I believe Kevin Pillar is going to be a corner outfielder next season, and Anthony Alford will be our starting center fielder because he is fast and he makes the plays look easy. And also at the plate, Kevin Pillar is not a serviceable major league batter. I mean, since the start of May, he's batting .207, and that stat I talked about last week, WRC plus, he's got a 47, so he's not even worth half of an average major league player right now offensively. and also
I guess
being
you could say that
negative
he
defense.
is half the man he used to be.
And I noticed tonight we've got him batting fifth. Why is Kevin Pillar batting fifth tonight when he has a 207 average in the last 2 months? John Gibbons, what are you doing?
Because intangibles, probably.
Ugh.
The intangibles that Clayton was talking about. And the thing is, I'm in Camp Clayton on this one, but at the same time, I think Kevin Pillar will be a starting center fielder next season with a different team.
Yeah, numbers don't lie.
Yeah, it just, this is the reality. This is the new Kevin Pillar.
Yep.
He doesn't have that quick step that he used to have, or maybe he never had it. He is a poor man's Kevin Kiermaier, and not to poop on him too hard, but you gotta take some pitches, man. You're swinging at everything.
Yeah, I think somebody put Kryptonite out in center field because he's not looking very super this year.
The fans like him. The boys like him. You need that kind of guy in the locker room. It's not all about stats, fellas.
Well,
Not
we can
all
put him
about
on
stats.
the bench and you can help from there.
Let's get to these next three guys here. Let's lump them all together and be quick. Yangervis Solarte and Justin Smoke are both slumping, but are we surprised that guys like this are slumping because of their swings? Maybe not so much Justin Smoke. His swing's gotten a little bit more fluid, but I mean, Solarte's swing, he's going to slump when he gives it 110% literally every time he swings the bat. So it's going to be all about timing with him. Same with Justin Smoke a little bit. He still kicks a little bit. But are you guys surprised or shocked that these two are slumping?
Solarte, not so much. We saw at the start of the season him playing kind of out of his ability with the amount of home runs. He's still hitting home runs on occasion for us, which is what he's going to do. I mean, he's going to break his career high. I think he's 3 away now from that, and we're not even halfway through the season. But he's doing what we need. He's our utility infielder right now, and he's providing us with some pop. I think he's still leading the team in RBI, and providing us with some defensive stability at third base currently because Josh Donaldson is pretty much dead at this point. And Smokey, he's been kind of off all season. Bit of a timing issue by the looks of it, just from brief watching. His slump is surprising based on the year he had last year, but in terms of his career, he's kind of just regressing to the norm of pre-2017. But I mean, there's still time for him. He's still a pretty good first baseman in terms of defense. He makes a lot of picks that most guys can't, so I appreciate that about him. And he'll hit home runs for us, but I mean, he'll come back. He's fine.
Yep. That's really all there is to say about both of them. I mean, they're supposed to be in the lineup to hit dongs, and they hit dongs. They're obviously going to slump from time to time when it comes to their batting average or being able to draw walks, or even their fielding play might become questionable. Maybe not so much for Smoke, but Solarte, I would say we're kind of seeing a little bit of that. But I mean, look, these are the guys we're paying to hit home runs.
Yeah.
And they're not hitting as many home runs as we'd like for them to hit. So, they'll bounce back. It'll be fine.
Quickly here, these last two guys, Teoscar Hernandez, we're not going to say sorry to him or not say sorry because he's on a little bit of both sides here. He struck out 9 times in his last 5 games, but at the same time, he's still playing really good baseball.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, Aaron Sanchez got hurt again. Surprise, surprise, it was his finger again. Aaron Sanchez is like that old lady from the movie Happy Gilmore, you know, when they're making the quilts, and she's like, my fingers hurt, and then she pulls landscaping duty. That's Aaron Sanchez. His fingers always fucking hurt, and I'm over it. Like, that's just the Canadian in me, because it's a finger injury. Like, for a hockey player like me, it's like, get the fuck back out there, you know? But I understand. He can't pitch because you can't. His fingers hurt, whatever.
They say it's a contusion this time. He jammed his finger. I tried to look, and I couldn't find how he jammed that. I think it's probably something embarrassing. Like, he probably jammed it in the car door or something stupid, or the hotel room door. He probably tried to snag something, and it snagged him instead. So at least it's not a blister. So we should not expect him to be out the rest of the season with this finger contusion. But I mean, he said he was having a hard time just gripping the baseball. And I mean, if you can't grip a baseball as a pitcher, you're not going to be able to pitch. So, so I mean, he'll spend his 10 days on the deal and he'll be back.
Patrick, do you think Aaron Sanchez is going to be pitching for the Jays by the end of the year, or are they going to shut him down?
No, he'll be back. He'll be fine. It's probably just some stupid finger thing, and it's not a blister. So thank Christ for that. But don't let all of this distract you from the fact that in his last 15 games, Teoscar Hernandez has struck out 36% of the time. In that time, he's batting .295, which is great.
Yeah.
He's got 4 dingers in those 15 games, which is nice. But, man, he has got to look at pitches instead of just swinging for the fences every single time he's at the plate.
That's the theme of the podcast today.
He's
take
young.
more pitches.
Yeah, I mean, we're paying Teoscar Hernandez to hit home runs. He's not there to get on base. He's here to knock guys that are on base in. So I've got no problem with him, in particular, swinging for the fences every time.
Yeah. All right. It is time for some number crunching. Advanced stats with Professor Justin Anderson. What are we talking about today? Sierra?
It's skill independent ERA. I always say it as SI ERA, but I know some people say Sierra. It's one of those things that doesn't really matter. So basically what skill independent earned run average tries to explain is it's a pitching stat. It tries to talk about what the underlying skill of a specific pitcher is. So how well did they actually pitch over the past year? So it looks back to the past, and it says, should their ERA have been higher, lower, or was it about right? So there's 3 big factors in Sierra. We'll call it that for short this time. So strikeouts are very good. So pitchers with a high strikeout percentage tend to give up weaker contact because they're not giving up contact, and therefore they'll give up less hits. That means equals less guys on base, less likely of runs scoring. Walks are bad, but they're not as bad if you don't allow a lot of them. So there's some guys that, like Corey Kluber is averaging less than a walk per game. So if Corey Kluber is only giving 1 walk per 9 innings, Sierra is not going to care about that. But it's guys like Marcus Stroman and Hernandez Sanchez who are giving up 4.5 walks a game. This stats like, geez, these guys aren't doing what they should be. And then the third one is that balls in play are complicated. Obviously, we have ground balls. We talk about that all the time. Having ground ball pitchers is a good thing, especially in Toronto, because it's less. You can't hit a home run on a ground ball unless you're very lucky. They'll go for hits less often. You'll get double plays on the ground, especially and it helps if you're a high walk pitcher but also a high ground ball pitcher, aka Marcus Stroman and Hernandez Sanchez. You get those double plays that help you get out of trouble. Mm-hmm. So there's some different aspects of Sierra that kind of contribute to it. There's kind of a ranking scale from 2.90 being excellent to anything over 5 being categorized as awful. In terms of the Blue Jays, Jay Happ, big surprise, has our best skill independent ERA among qualified starters at 3.43. It's actually lower than his ERA, so that's in the great to above average range. Our worst, Mr. Aaron Sanchez, at 4.98, is actually the 5th worst among qualified starters in the big leagues. I mean, he was I think he was higher until this recent kind of couple of games. Estrada's also up in that worst category at a 4.71. Somebody like Sam Gaviglio, who isn't technically a qualified starter, he hasn't met the innings requirement yet, has a 3.67 Sierra, which would rank him in the top 25. Among qualified starters if he was qualified. So that's something to keep in mind. Is he's got a 4.21 ERA, but Sierra says he should actually be lower than that. So it's one of those stats that, like I've talked about FIP before, where it's fielder independent pitching, where it talks about if all factors were equal, this would be his ERA. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of a stat that looks to the past, whereas FIP kind of looks to the future. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of like, what's this guy done over the past year? And obviously Jay Happ's been very good. We know that for a fact. And this kind of just reinforces that, yes, he hasn't been getting lucky. Mm-hmm. He's actually pitched to this level. So that's kind of what this stat goes for. You won't find it on most sites. I believe you'll probably only find it on places like Fangraphs, which kind of cater to the nerd in like me in terms of all these advanced stats. But it's a really good indicator if you're looking at like free agents, especially, like what did this guy do last year? And so you'll see a 3.2 ERA. Wow, that's really good. But then you go look at this stat and maybe it might be over 4, and you're like, okay, so there's some underlying issues here that if all things were considered equal, he would not have pitched as well as the numbers indicate.
So it seems like pitchers who aren't really strikeout pitchers, they put the ball in play, ground ball pitchers kind of thing, they'll have a higher Sierra than guys like Chris Sale or Jay Happ that basically just strike out.
Like Max Scherzer has the best Sierra right now.
So it seems like this is a stat for like, if you're a strikeout pitcher, you're going to have a really, really high Sierra, or you should at least.
Strikeouts are really good, so your Sierra will be lower than than everyone else's. So like guys like Chris Sale and Scherzer are in the top 5. Kluber's up there too because he's averaging .97 walks per 9 innings.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It's the lowest in baseball.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's awesome. I wish we had him hard too.
Yeah.
So that's Sierra. It's kind of complicated. Like I looked at the actual equation for calculating it, and made my brain hurt. So I won't go into any of that stuff. But it's out there if for you math nuts who are into percentages and stats and all that stuff. It is out there if you want to find it.
Patrick, what do you think about ERA? Are you one of those weird baseball fans that think that ERA is an overrated stat, or do you think that it's still pretty valuable stat?
Well, I mean, after this segment, I think Sierra is a more valuable stat just because we just got schooled. But at the same time, ERA can be very deceptive. If you're a relief pitcher or if you have limited starts, not enough time on the diamond, it can kind of be deceptive if it's really low. Like if you take, for example, like Ryan Tepera right now, I think his ERA is below 3.
Yeah, I think you're
and right. I think, and like Gaviglio, his ERA is 4.21, and there's not really enough data for us to kind of compare the two. Obviously, Tepera is older and has more MLB experience, but personally, based on what I just learned about Sierra, I would rather have someone like Gaviglio on the team because he has that lower Sierra number, and it's more of an indicator of his quality as a pitcher. Am I on the right track, Justin?
Yeah, you are. Personally, Sierra is good, but like I said, it looks to the past, whereas stuff like FIP and XFIP look kind of at the present and near future of what should happen to an ERA. So that's why, like, if you look at the actual Fangraphs player pages, FIP and XFIP will be in the main area, whereas Sierra is down lower. It's a good indicator, like I said, for somebody like Happ, Estrada, and Sanchez, who have a wealth of work in the big leagues and kind of a reputation and years of pitching, that it gives you a better idea of how they've performed over their careers. So a guy like Happ has a nice Sierra. But for a young guy like Gaviglio, who has not even a full season of work yet, looking at his FIP is probably a better indicator of what his ERA will do. So it's kind of a one of these and one of those apples to oranges sort of situation in terms of pitching stats. But personally, I'm more on the FIP train than the Sierra, but I still think it is a very useful stat. I use it in fantasy all the time when I'm drafting free agents and that kind of thing to see what they've done, and that kind of gives me an idea of what I'm getting into.
All right, let's talk about the farm here. It's kind of nice having Vladdy Jr. hurt. I never thought I'd say that, but now that Vladdy hasn't played for the past couple weeks, we can focus on some other guys like Biggio, Bichette, Reed Foley. But before we get into those guys, Patrick, there's one guy who has been just mashing the ball so far. Tell us a bit about him.
We're talking about Jordan Groshans?
Absolutely.
Yeah, wow. He has only played like 5 games so far, but he is already 9 for 9. He's got 2 doubles, 2 home runs, a 1.478 OPS. He's getting walks. He's struck out a few times, but I mean, he's hit in every single one of his games so far. This kid, I didn't even know who he was, to be honest with you, until we drafted him. And ever since then, I can't wait for him to sort of develop as a player and see him come up and play for the Jays.
Yeah, he's 9 for 19, by the way, not 9 for 9. That would be absolutely ridiculous. Craig Biggio, or not Craig Biggio. I'm just so used to saying Craig Biggio. I used to love Craig Biggio back in the day. Kevin Biggio. Is it Kevin or Kavon?
Kavon,
It's
I think
all
it's
fancy
pronounced,
like that.
yeah.
Kavon.
Yeah.
Kavon Biggio. He's got 16 home runs in Double-A New Hampshire, but he's only batting .221 the last 30 days. Is the batting average kind of worrying you a little bit, or the fact that he's still hitting with power, does that excite you? Which side are you on?
So he's got a career high already in home runs this season. Most of them came a little bit earlier in the year. I think he's kind of suffering a little bit of not having Vladdy in the lineup, because him and Vladdy were batting back to back.
Yeah.
At one point, and obviously with Vladdy out for the last couple of weeks, he's suffered a little bit. I still think Biggio had a great April and first half of May. I think he's just in a bit of a cold spell. He's developing. I mean, before this season, he wasn't even looked upon as a potential major league player. I think he's still ranked as like our 16th prospect in the organization. So he's got some work to do in terms of his swing. He's admitted, and he knows. I mean, his dad works with him all off season, that he's got a few holes in his swing. And I think pitchers are kind of exploiting that. And obviously, Double A is a fastball league. So seeing how he does there is kind of worrisome in terms of if he ever gets promoted to AAA and has to face some nasty breaking pitches, he might struggle a little bit more. But it's a little bit too early in terms of a Double A player who's 23 to kind of make snap judgments about batting .221 over 30 days. I mean, he's still producing runs for the Fisher Cats, and they're playing well. So while he's doing that, I don't think we have to worry about him too much.
Let's get to Bo Bichette then. Patrick will take this one because his average is up to 285. After really struggling over the past couple of weeks, he might have been another Vladimir Guerrero Jr. casualty there. But he's batting .327 the last 30 days. The big stat that no one really talks about when it comes to Bo Bichette, he's got 24 stolen bases in 30 tries. He's gotten thrown out 6 times, which is a little high, not really, but I mean, 24 stolen bases for a guy hitting .285, that's crazy. And then the one stat too, left-handed pitching versus right-handed pitching, his average essentially the exact same. Yep. Patrick, I knew you were a little worried about Bo Bichette when he was slumping, but has he answered your questions now, or?
Yep, definitely. I definitely feel a lot better about what he's doing now in Double A. I think it's incredible how he's been able to turn it around, and even though he hasn't stolen a lot of bases in the last 10 days or so, he's still the quantity of stolen bases this guy has already is it's crazy to me. He's already got 24 in Double A,
nobody talks about his speed. It's awesome.
He's really he's not striking out as much anymore. His last 10 games, he's only struck out 4 times. He's only drawn 3 walks, but his average is .316, which means he's seeing the ball better, and he's making a lot of quality contact. Not hitting a lot of home runs, not getting a lot of RBIs, but he's putting himself in, scoring position, and he's giving the team the opportunity to bring him home. And he's doing all the right things as far as I'm concerned that he should be doing. I'm very curious to see if he can keep up his on-base percentage in AAA when he's going to start to face pitchers who've got more variation as far as their stuff. Because I really don't know if he's seeing, quality off-speed pitches in AA. But nonetheless, very, very happy with what he's done so far. And definitely in the last 30 days, he's turned it around. He's done exactly what he needed to do. So good on him.
All right, on to the topic that every Jays fan seems to be talking about. Who are we going to trade? Because, spoiler alert, we're probably going to be trading a lot of guys when the deadline comes around. The one name that has been coming up a lot, Happ. But Josh Donaldson's name has started to surface a lot more than it was at the beginning of the season, because those trade rumors were always there with Josh, but it was always like, well, you know what, he's a former MVP, he's a fan favorite, do we really want to trade this guy? But lately, since he hasn't been really playing that great of baseball, people have been saying, yeah, it might be time to trade Josh Donaldson. My question to you guys is, does Josh Donaldson have any trade value? Justin?
You'll see in all capitals on our little sheet here that I wrote no value in all caps, because I mean we heard a couple hours ago that he's going to be shut down for 3 weeks.
Yikes.
He had a setback. There's a strain in his left RIP calf muscle again.
Josh Donaldson having a problem with his calf? Well, fucking shocker. Wow.
I said to Patrick in our Skype chat, we need to put robot legs on him, because there's at this point, I mean, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Yeah.
Kind of comes into mind. He doesn't have much value right now. He hasn't played well in his very, 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 very limited time this season, and he's been hurt for more than he's been healthy. We should have traded him last year or the offseason, looking at it now in hindsight, being 2020 and what it is. His performance, I'm not certain whether he's declining at this point, because we just haven't seen enough of the guy this year. Hopefully 3 weeks, that puts us mid-July. Yikes. Doesn't leave him much time to build any value up before the deadline. if all goes well, he comes back mid-July and rakes for a week and a half, and we can trade him for something. But at this point, it kind of seems like we're going to have to keep the guy. Because what are we going to get anything for him? People will make the argument that something is better than nothing, because if we don't trade him, he's going to have his contract expire, and maybe he doesn't resign. But he's not going to command a big price on the free agent market at this point.
Patrick, do you agree?
Yes, I think we're at the point now where the JD saga in Toronto is going to come to a very unfortunate end, and it's just going to be him finishing off the season with mediocre numbers compared to his previous seasons. We're seeing continuous decline. He's doing all the things that he shouldn't be doing. At the plate, he's not hitting as many home runs. He's striking out more. He's not getting as many walks. He's not getting on base as much. The value is almost gone. And these 3 weeks, we really needed him to come back and just tear the cover off the ball so we get some kind of value. At this point, it's almost better if Josh Donaldson is shut down for the rest of the year so that we can attempt to re-sign him at a massive discount that we weren't expecting before. So that way he can either DH for us or some spot starts at first, maybe some spot starts at third when Vladdy Jr. And Solarte need a night off.
Our
Just
listeners,
like at this point,
our listeners are going to start like slitting their wrists listening to you guys being all negative Nancy's over here. Like,
well, what are we supposed to say? Like, everything's happy. Josh Donaldson's a great player. We don't know that anymore.
I'm going to be positive Pedro Martinez over here and say that, guys, like, it's Josh Donaldson. The name has value to it. His game may not have value, but his name has value. He's a former MVP. He is the bringer of rain. He is still a marquee baseball player, even though it's not showing on the field right now. But teams who are in that playoff race are going to be like, you know what? We need to shake things up. We need something to get our fans excited about this playoff push. Let's get a guy like Josh Donaldson with the name value to him, you know? Something that'll get the team excited to be like, you know what? We are going to make a run at this. It might not pay off for the team because they don't watch Blue Jay baseball as much as we do up here in Canada, and they'll get Josh Donaldson and he'll play like garbage. And I mean, I'm not defending the way he's playing. He's been playing like crap, but I'm saying that the name has value to Josh. Yeah. So we still have that for us. Because you're right, Josh Donaldson, he is a shell of his former self, but there is going to be one team out there that is going to be like the Jays 3 or 4 years ago when we got Tulo, when we got Price, when we got Revere. We were getting just everyone we could at the deadline. There's going to be another team like that, there always is this year, that is going to go out and get Josh Donaldson, I think. When it comes to our pitchers, we know that Happ is probably going to be traded. Let's be real here. Yeah. He's our one good trading block player. But out of these three pitchers, who do you think is most likely to get traded? Jaime Garcia, Marco Estrada, or Ryan Tepera?
Tepera for sure.
Okay.
There are lots of teams that need help big time in their bullpens. I know the Diamondbacks were looking at relievers a while ago. And the Rockies, if they're still in contention by come July, they might look at somebody outside of Josh Hader, who is maybe the filthiest relief pitcher in baseball. Their bullpen is a burning pile of poop. So Tepera might be a guy that they look to solidify the back end there. And I mean, bullpen arms are kind of a dime a dozen. There's a ton of guys out there who can throw hard. But Tepera is kind of locked in this year that he can solidify that late inning role. And that's a valuable spot come competitive baseball in September and October.
Yeah, I mean, you said it very, very well. I think Tepera has that value. And I want to backtrack for a second because, Clayton, I think you're right about Josh Donaldson in that he does have value, like his name has value, and I hope to God that either the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Milwaukee Brewers, or the St. Louis Cardinals have that exact same mentality that you just described when it comes mid-July so we can get something out of Donaldson before he leaves.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be Pittsburgh, and I think we're actually going to get something very surprising out of them.
Okay, I hope you guys are right. I really do.
It's man again.
Bold prediction.
And negative Nancy's, man. Josh
I
Donaldson
really hope
does
you're
have
right.
value. He
I
does.
really hope so.
He does have value. Let's get to fan mail here, shall we? Believe it or not, we do have a fan. It's Justin's sister. Raina asked us, what would your dream ballpark giveaway promotion day be? I'm going to let Justin go first because you are responsible for our one fan. So you get to go first. We'll go with Patrick. I'll bat third here.
So when she texted me this morning with this question, I immediately replied back, replica jerseys that actually fit, because I mean they're always double XL.
Yeah.
And that's I wear an extra large most times for the length. But I mean, double XL is like a dress.
Yeah.
Like I'm one of those girls in a sundress just swimming in the damn thing.
Yeah.
But besides that, it would be some sort of like World Series replica ring would be pretty cool to have.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like one of those. Yeah, that's probably mine. I think the replica jerseys is a pretty big thing for me.
So rings or jerseys, which one would you rather?
Probably the jerseys. That would actually like an actual fitting jersey. Like if I could be like, yeah, I want this extra large, and like, okay, here you go. And I'm like, wow, it fits.
I have enough jerseys, but I don't have enough rings.
Yeah.
Zero
You don't wear
rings,
the ring, though, or
actually.
just gonna sit on a
No,
shelf?
but I'll put it on my little Blue Jays memorabilia shelf, and it'll look kind of cool. And maybe I'll brag to some people that don't know baseball that much that I was on the team. Maybe I'll get away with it, you know? I'll wear it around town and be like, I played for the Jays. Give me a free beer. Patrick, what about you? Dream ballpark giveaway.
If I was going to the ballpark, specifically the one in Toronto, obviously, I would love to walk into the Rogers Center and be handed a one-of-a-kind Carlos Delgado bobblehead with a Canada Day uniform on the bobblehead from like the mid to late 90s. You know, the weird ones they used to wear on Canada Day when they played the Expos?
Yeah.
Because whenever I think of Blue Jay baseball in the 90s, I know like everybody thinks of like Joe Carter, et cetera, but I always think of Carlos Delgado, and he never gets enough credit for what he did in Toronto during what I guess we could call the down years. Dude finished his career with almost 500 home runs and over 1,500 runs batted in. He was on the team for 11 years, and nobody talks about him anymore, and I don't understand. I really don't.
It's kind of sad, yeah.
He hit.
Go on.
Sorry.
No, you're up.
I was just gonna say, fun little fact about Delgado. He's one of only 6 MLB players in history to hit 30 home runs in 10 consecutive seasons.
Wow.
Yeah.
Consistency.
And he was the 4th player to do that.
Wow. Okay, that's a cool stat. I'm gonna save that one.
You guys and your stats. Good God.
That's cool though.
That is cool.
Did you know that?
No, I did not.
You learned
that is
something
really
today.
cool. The one thing it would be cool for a giveaway, giant Band-Aid day, because remember when he hit the Hard Rock Cafe and he cracked it and they put that giant Band-Aid on the top there? Everyone gets it. First 20,000 people get a giant Band-Aid. For me, I had one and then I forgot about it with the giant Band-Aid joke. I totally just didn't even realize
That's
it.
the one.
What the hell? Oh, and it was really good. Shit.
Well, speaking of shit, let's talk about Archie Bradley.
Good segue. Good segue. We'll come back around to it, guys. How did I just forget that? Oh, I remember. Okay, before shit. As the broadcaster in me, I would want a Buck Martinez wig day. I would want a Buck Martinez wig, or I would want a punch Mike Wilner in the face day. I hate Mike Wilner. I worked in a little behind the scenes here. I used to work in Estevan, Saskatchewan, this radio station called CJ 1280. It's CJ 1150 now, and they broadcast all the Blue Jay games. And to make extra money on the side during the weekends, because again, I was the morning show host, so I had to be up at like 4 a.m, so I couldn't really stay up and board up the games. I would board up the weekend games. And Mike Wilner would usually do a lot of the weekend games on the radio. I can't stand the point of view that Mike Wilner has when it comes to Blue Jay baseball. That guy, he just bothers me so much. Man. He's a little bit of a homer, but at the same time, he's a negative homer.
Yeah.
So he is talking about the Blue Jays, but in a bad way all the time, and I can't take it. He's shit, which is why we're talking about Archie Bradley. Again, the second good segue in the past 2 minutes.
This story is hilarious. I know I read it this afternoon, and then Patrick had sent it to me right away. Basically, we kind of saw it at the same time. So the story goes like this. So Archie Bradley was warming up in the bullpen, and it was almost time for him to come out. There was like a 2-2 count on the batter, and he had to pee. So he runs to the bullpen bathroom, and he's emptying his bladder when he excretes a little bit of poop into his pants. So he has to kind of clean himself up. And then they call him into the game, and he goes in and pitches a perfect inning, essentially. He gets out of the jam. So Archie Bradley pitched a inning with a poopy pants. And when he came into the dugout and told his teammates that he had, quote-unquote, pooped himself, they didn't believe him. But it's a thing. He was on a podcast, and he was talking about it with the guys, and yeah, that's quite the story. So, I mean, maybe it's kind of a new superstition for Archie Bradley where he's coming into a jam, he's going to have to go poop himself before he hits the mound.
Worst tradition ever. My God.
Hey, whatever works for you.
You're just gonna sit there and laugh, Patrick.
It's quite the story.
You're not gonna add anything to the shit in his pants.
This is why we love baseball. We get stuff like this that comes out. Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
It's a good baseball story.
He's got a great beard. He's pitching very well this season, and you know what? I'm gonna give him a pass for this one. It happens to a lot of pro athletes.
Yep.
Well, you see cyclists, they just pee the whole time they're out there. They don't have time to stop. Like Tour de France guys, they'll just pee while they're riding their bike.
Okay, what's grosser, this Archie Bradley story or Moises Alou and some other major leaguers peeing on their hands for instead of using batting gloves earlier in the season?
Definitely the peeing on the hands thing. I mean,
yeah,
everybody poops, right? But I mean, sometimes it happens where you never trust a fart, right? And but I mean, willingly peeing on yourself.
Happens to the best of us.
I don't know. It's pretty easily avoidable.
I just want to know how Moises Alou found that out. Like, was he just like missed one day when he's at the toilet and pees on his hands, goes up, hits a dinger afterwards? Like, wow, this really works. Oh, this is great.
That's based on a true story.
That is true, by the way. You can Google it if you want to.
Oh yeah, for
it
sure.
Doesn't sound real, but yeah, Moises Alou, huge weirdo. We'll end it on that note, I guess. Who would have thought we would end the podcast on a Moises Alou joke today? If you would have put money on that, congratulations.
The Vegas odds were not very good on that.
I don't know who bets on podcast jokes, but if you do, you should probably seek some help or something like that. You might have a gambling addiction when that happens. On behalf of the Brett Laurie fan club vice president, Justin Anderson,
Chairman and CEO,
and the Maritime Mistress Maker, Patrick Marsh, this is Clayton Croker, episode 4, Bat Flips and Maple Dips. It is in the books. Thanks for listening wherever you are, and we'll talk to you next week.